Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
Whew, I'm here, brother. Loaded, just loaded. I'm jam packed with energy, Kevin. I'm filled right to the brim with excitement over the upcoming elections. It's gonna be
Heck
great,
yeah,
man.
we're all excited for the election to be over. Yes, that's
Yeah, no, I mean I'm excited. This
for,
run up to
for
it though has
just
been
just to run up,
epic.
just
It's like I
love of the game.
I want to
Excited
keep
about your
going.
civic responsibility to vote.
Oh yeah, no, I'm planning on. I might not even vote, really. But that's besides the point of just how exciting this can be. Like it's
Gilly, host a political show. Like I don't know, maybe I won't vote.
voting is fake. I mean,
Doesn't
I
even
don't know.
matter.
Like, if we could really affect the outcome, would they let us do it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's probably real.
So
Like,
cynical. I'm not that cynical. I think it does matter. It is important. I've
uh,
seen races, primary races that have literally come down to a dozen votes. I think it's important. Now, am I excited about the particular people on my ballot this year?
probably
No,
not.
no, just
No.
not at all. I'm for the most part. Like, I mean, there's a few candidates that people don't get excited about. Like, I've worked with some like judge candidates and like gotten to know
Yeah,
them. They seem like nice people. But
yeah.
besides that, like, I'm like, man, I don't
Nah,
know. A lot of them.
nah.
That's
Well, I mean, honestly, it whatever, man. Like, I'll
yeah.
probably vote.
Well,
You know,
but that's where with that level of excitement, we're gonna talk about this during the show though. So we'll just jump right into the show. We'll talk about our
uh,
bold predictions for the election,
yeah. Let's
and
do it.
yeah, let's get into it. 3, 2.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Marion O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. I don't know about you, but the excitement is just absolutely palpable. The run up to the most important election of our lifetimes, it's just
Yes.
it's marred with mistakes, it's marred with blunders. There's tons of excitement. Joe Rogan is like probably going to decide the next president of the United
Might.
States. I mean,
We're gonna see. We're all on the edge of our seat. Is Kamala Harris gonna go on Joe Rogan? They've been going back and forth. You know, she wants like Joe to come to her. Joe's like, I don't do that. You come to me. We'll
well, first
see
of
how
all,
it goes. It's a power contest at this point.
here's the thing. If Joe Rogan has to go to her, he's going to incur monetary expenses. This is going to be an in-kind donation of more than $3,300, and I think it violates election law. And I hope we can convict them in the court of public opinion tonight on the show.
Yeah.
It seems like election interference.
Oh, and Matthew said it's too late for her. He mentioned this on his last show. Oh man, I thought they were still trying to work it out, but I guess it's too late.
Yeah, this morning at
Missed
8
opportunity.
a.m. He said it's still possible. And then I guess that's changed since between now and then. I think
Yeah, Joe
JD
Rogan
Vance
might be the guy who decides the election, and like this might be the final nail in the coffin. We'll see. Or maybe Kamala's smart to not go on Joe Rogan's show and try to talk for 3 hours.
if she did go on Joe Rogan show, I think a lot of people would anticipate it being the final nail in her coffin. She is not a great conversationalist.
I mean,
I
it
think
could be fine though. Like it's hard to say. Like I mean, some people you think would be really good are like, you know, not great. Like I thought like when Larry Sharp went on, he just did okay. Like Joe Rogan kept trying to make jokes at him, and Larry wasn't like picking it up. Even though like in every other context I've seen Larry speak, like he's fantastic.
yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It was I was surprised because Larry is a unique conversationalist. I really got the sense that their brains never connected, right? Like, you know how we're
Yeah.
having a conversation. You remember our first shows, like some of it would be
Yeah, it's just
awkward.
there's no like
Yeah.
chemistry there, and it's just wasn't there.
And our
But
timing would be off. I'd interrupt you. You'd interrupt me. We'd want to be like, and it felt like that with Larry and Joe when Larry was on there. And it just
that
never,
always worked.
they didn't sync up. They were talking past each other. Like,
Yeah. But, you know, like, I mean, there's interesting conversation between Rogan and Trump, you know, like some of it weird, as often happens on that show, but like
oh, yeah.
a lot of it funny. Like, you know, I almost named this episode like Trump would be a lot funnier if he lost, which is true. Like,
Yeah.
if like we just like, you know, didn't know if he was saying stuff seriously or not, and he was just throwing stuff out there, like it'd be a lot funnier, right? Like, but
Yeah.
sometimes he'll like throw out a policy proposal, like, yeah, you should be in jail for burning American flags. Wait,
What?
no, man. Like, if you weren't actually trying to get power,
Uh,
I'd just like, that's Trump, you know. But like, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like, look, I'm not a big, huge fan of burning the flag as a protest. Like, I don't think it's cool. But like, also, the free speech ain't free, man. You know, like, and that honestly, I don't know
Free
where he
speech.
got that from. I don't know where that came from. It just came out of left field.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan was great. He's like, "Hey, your weave gets kind of wide sometimes. Can you kind of dial back to this question?" You know, and it was just like
It's
that
funny.
was hilarious,
It's
man.
funny. I
That
mean,
was
like,
really good.
I said, some of Joe Rogan's interviews, I've seen some of the clips, like him and Trump, he's funny, you know, and like he gets Alex Jones to be really funny too. Like, even though I think he's kind of a jerk, but you know,
I
all this stuff ends up being funny.
Yeah, I don't go out of my way to watch Alex Jones, but every time I've seen him or heard him or some of his like,
Like, so some of his clips on Joe Rogan are, you know, they're funny, right? Like, I mean, like
yeah,
you're laughing at his expense in some of these cases, but same with Trump. But like, it's still like good natured fun most of the time. And again, it would be nicer if like, you know, the people who are being funny weren't like actually seeking power. Now, we did talk about like bold. So we said bold election predictions for this show. So
yeah,
we'll start out with Tim. What do you think is going to happen on election day? What's going to happen?
Oh, well, as we all know, absolutely nothing is going to be concluded on election day.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2020, I went to bed looking at my predicted markets, and I'm like, score. I had Trump winning. It was all the way at like 89 cents. I was up like my $10 bet had turned almost into $20 at that point. And I was like, all right, I'm rich. I should have cashed out apparently because I woke up and it was worth nothing. And I'm like,
Dang.
what the heck kind of deal is this? It was that's why I don't gamble other than I try to play poker. And
Yeah.
I'm not as good a poker player as Nate Silver, who we'll probably talk about at some point in
Yeah.
the
We'll
show.
talk about him, I'm sure. But yeah, no, that's missed opportunity, Tim. Don't take gambling advice from Tim or Bitcoin advice. Should I buy
No.
Bitcoin right now? Is it not a good time to buy?
Right now it's at a high, Kevin, but you know
All
what?
right, all
It's
right.
going to go to triple digits.
It's gonna keep going though, right? So
Yeah.
like I'm gonna buy it up. All right, yeah.
Now
that's
is
a good
the
plan.
time to buy Bitcoin, guys. Like if you have a nickel, an extra nickel in your desk, you send it right into Robinhood, you open up that account and you start buying Bitcoin right now because honestly, the sky is the limit. More people will figure out like how to use a wallet because if we do that, we can beat the government, guys.
For legal reasons, I'm gonna say this is a joke, and Tim's not giving financial advice.
I am
Radio.
definitely, do not.
Dude,
Well,
don't listen to anything you say.
no. First of all, I don't know. I think I made like 7 wallets. I have none of them, and there's like pennies in each one. So if somebody can figure out my wallets, you're gonna.
Tim
be
has
not-
like 4 whole Bitcoins in one of these wallets from
Oh my God,
15 years ago.
I would retire. I would. I'd just be like, you know what? I'm done. That's it. I give up.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I haven't made any of my predictions yet, but I'm gonna throw in this comment too. Brennan Byrne on X says, "You guys see Kamala Harris as a major turning point in the Democratic Party. Personally, I think their disgraceful moves of this election cycle will lose them good faith for decades."
Yeah. So that's a great comment. It's very thought provoking. So let me put it to you like this: I do not know that the team GOP answered the questions of how they got outworked in the last election cycle. I don't know that they got out legislated, they got out maneuvered, all of those things really happened. They got out like outscored. If you think of it as a sport, like they had
Yeah.
people on the ground working harder, getting ballots. Ballot harvesting, guys, bad news for you. It's not illegal. They do it. It's legitimately they do it. So I don't know. So I do think she's been kind of reprehensible, though. I would like to agree with that. Like the whole Hitler Trump is Hitler thing it's like it's old, man. It's
Yeah.
old. It's
I mean,
boring.
they actually they toned it down a lot this election cycle, the Trump is Hitler stuff. I like, and even like the one article that looked like it was going around about comparing Trump to Hitler, it was fake. It's fake. Someone made up a fake article. I mean, like I know plenty of people have made the comparison and talked about fascism, but like it was like way more toned down this time. Because I think people saw that like they're just kind of like tuning it out at this point. I mean, to answer the commenter's question specifically is I'm going to take the same route that I think it was David French took from who's kind of a conservative guy, and it's basically like neither the GOP nor the Democratic Party are going to lose badly enough that they're going to feel they need to change. It's probably going to be a close election, so if that's the case, unless it ends up being a surprise landslide one way or the other, we're probably going to have a very similar set of two parties in 4 years, because they're going to be like, well,
awful.
yeah, our ballot was really close, or the campaign was really close. The Democrats will say, but like it was just a voter suppression that happened in all these places. The darn GOP like suppressed the votes, and that was what made us lose. Or if the Democrats win, if Kamala wins, the Trump team's going to be like, they stole the election again. They did it last time. They did it again. There's election irregularities. They stole the election. We had the right strategy. We did the right thing, and the people love our modern GOP. Like, it's just that the Democrats cheat. That's what I think is going to happen, is that both sides are going to be like, nope, we did the right thing. We have the right strategy, but you guys cheated. That's it.
Well, look, arguably, I'm going to go with, I think that there is some sort of metamorphosizing going on in the Republican Party. And I'm not sure that I like it.
You don't like the metamorphosis that's happening at the Republican Party? What is it?
Well, okay.
What metamorphosis are you seeing?
So if okay, so I like the notion that they're now the party of the working class. There's certain things about it that I do like, that I enjoy, but they are becoming increasingly more big government celebratory of that kind of style of governance, and they're like, we're just going to do it a lot better than the Democrats. Like that's their new thing, and I'm not sure that it's a new thing. Maybe they just used to hide it more
upfront about it.
Yeah.
No, so they used to, like, libertarianism used to be the third leg of the the conservative stool, right? And so they would talk about, well, even like Mitt Romney, who's not like really a small government guy, would talk about like free markets, and you talk about reducing spending and reducing the scope of government. And then also, by the way, here's my healthcare plan, but you would at least pretend you pay lip service. They're not even doing that anymore, really, except for like when they're in front of Angela McArdle, then they pretend to. But like other than that, I know that's inside. That's the chair of the Libertarian Party, for folks who are WYSL being like, who the heck is that?
Inside baseball.
It is a little bit, but so there's a handful of libertarians who pretend that like Trump is like a super libertarian guy. I'm like, he's not. Like, I will listen. I will entertain arguments that he is a lesser evil.
Yeah,
like, I will entertain those. Right, like I will take you seriously. I will listen to you. I get it, and we can talk about that too. But like, he's not a libertarian. It's not like the people are like, no, he's a libertarian guy, and he's like, he's going to eliminate the income tax. I'm like, yeah, he said he would consider eliminating the income tax and replacing it with a bunch of other taxes.
What if we replace it with nothing? That's what I'm saying. Like, let's.
What a thought. That I think that was, for as much as people dislike this guy Arvin Vohra, who used to be like the vice chair. He used to talk about that. He had a good speech where he like would talk about that, and he's like, hey, listen, if you're in a conversation with Republicans and Democrats and they're like, oh, well, like maybe we cut this tax, but maybe we tax somewhere else. He said, no, cut this tax and replace it with nothing. Cut government spending and replace it with nothing. That's the platform. What are we going to do? We're going to cut stuff and replace it with nothing. Great speech on that.
Okay, so I love that guy. He's my hero. Here's the reality. Like, I was very excited. We did a show on it when they started talking about no tax on tips, and I'm like, this is going to get spicy. This is going to get interesting. So you had Bernie Sanders raging on Twitter about how important the income tax is, and it's just like, guys, he's the guy that promises everybody everything for free. And he's like, but if we don't charge you guys income tax, we're going to cripple the federal government and we're going to make rich people richer. And it's just like, what? Okay, like, what are you talking about? Like, you're literally making the case of we all become government stooges and slaves, and the government will grant us whatever the government thinks it can grant us. And I don't know, like, there was hope for him in 2016 when he was primarying Hillary, right? There was hope for him. I wanted it to be him and Rand Paul having a very serious conversation about the direction of the country. And I thought Rand Paul was going to wreck him. We ended up with Hillary and Trump. And my God, man, like Trump was hilarious back then. But and he's kind of getting hilarious now too. Like, this is the Trump I've been waiting
like,
for.
He does some funny stuff. It's just
Oh,
his policies
freaking-
stink. Like, I mean, in like the best case for that I've heard for you know, like Trump is like, well, listen, all this stuff he says about tariffs and like, you know, flag burning and all, it's just he's just like riffing. Like, it doesn't even matter. He's not going to do any of that. And I'm like,
Correct.
Yeah,
he won't do
maybe,
it.
or maybe he'll get in a mood and do something crazy. Like, I don't know. You don't.
Yeah.
That's like I can.
So let's play the Trump is the lesser of the two evils game, all right? Because I was thinking about that, and I feel like we should have that conversation. Let's see where you go with it. Okay, if I want to compare the Second Amendment adherence of Trump versus Kamala, arguably I'm uncomfortable with both of them, but I am way more uncomfortable with Kamala Harris than I am with Donald Trump. And I'm still uncomfortable with Donald Trump.
Either Trump take the guns first, or
and we'll give him due process later. Like, but he didn't say, "Hey, we're just going to take the guns," right?
And also he used the ATF to just like ban bump stocks. Just did it unilaterally, which got slapped down by the Supreme Court.
His Supreme Court, according to every liberal in the world, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah. But certainly the Democrat Party, Kamala Harris, all of them trade on the notion that gun control is going to make us safer and that they are willing to go door to door to take people's guns. Like, they trade on that. And whereas Donald Trump's like, I just want to make sure we fix crazy people. And everybody goes, oh, okay. Except for libertarians who are like, shut up, you psychopath. That's nuts. Don't do that. That's crazy. That is not.
And then everyone's like, quiet, libertarians. No one asked you.
Man, they do. They did that effectively, though.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, like I don't, because Donald Trump's again, he's enacted some of some gun control stuff. He's done that. He's done it unilaterally, which I think is dangerous. Kamala Harris, like, yeah, she's talked about it in a way that Democrats talk about it. Gosh, there's got to be some way, to make sure that we keep the firearms out of dangerous people's hands. Okay, yeah. I'm not like, if I weren't voting for Chase Oliver, which is I've already been upfront, that's who I'm voting for.
Sure.
If I actually had to vote for some reason for one of those two, like, this wouldn't be a deciding factor for me.
Okay.
I've listened, like there's been a bunch of like tweet threads about from libertarians are like, this is the libertarian case for Kamala Harris, this is the libertarian case for Trump. I think, like, let me give the strongest case for Trump that I've seen, even though I still think it's a little bit mixed, and it's basically on foreign policy.
Mm-hmm.
It's to say that Donald Trump's foreign policy is to be somewhat belligerent, but actually trying to disengage the United States from the world, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of creating diplomatic uncertainty in that, whoa, maybe Trump really would use a nuke on Russia if they did, something too ridiculous, but also actively trying to end the conflict in Ukraine, right? Like, that's and actively trying to broker peace, like with like the Abraham Accords. So things like that. So that's the best case that I've heard made for Trump. Now, again, that's assuming that you think it is a good policy objective to like not be involved in Ukraine, and that like us sending weapons there isn't a net gain for peace and security in Europe. If that's how you feel, like, and I'm just stating like someone else's position, that yeah, Donald Trump's not going to be your guy, and you got to hope that Kamala Harris is going to find peace and stability in Europe by the U.S. funding the Ukrainians and the Israelis and basically everyone else to try to give leverage so that we can hopefully broker peace. That's like the Biden doctrine and most likely the Harris doctrine.
She's Kevin working really hard to separate herself from Joe Biden, even though
Right.
that's
I,
one
I'm
of the
not
weirdest.
I'm not
things
very
of all.
convinced that on foreign policy she's going to be all that different. I think she's like kind of like there's an actual international relations term for it, but like a muscular liberalist. That's not the right term for it, but because there's like realists, but basically her philosophy on international relations seems to be that it is a good to promote liberalism in like the small L sense across the world, and that U.S. foreign policy should be used to that end. It's sort of a nicer sounding version of like what neocons were advocating.
So in that sense, when I was a younger man and less interested in politics and not so affected by the cognitive dissonance of being lied to every single day and watching our dollar get devalued, okay? In that sense, I thought that our global work around the world of bringing liberalism or democracy at the point of a gun and setting up democratic regimes, democratic governments in places that hadn't seen democracy was an admirable goal. Like I was like, well, let's export the US Constitution. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I thought that there was something to that. And then we were never really successful. And all we ended up doing was killing hundreds of thousands of people. And it was like,
Yeah, no,
and
I
religious
think
theocracies rise into that power vacuum. And I'm like, man, could
yeah, on net, I think the U.S. ended up making the world a worse place. Even if there legitimately were good intentions, and I'm not saying there were in this case either, but even if there were,
yeah,
I think that the world ended up on net a worse place. Now, on that sour note, we do have to head out for our first break. I think we'll take a few more of these comments about Trump, and then maybe we'll talk about like let's make the best case for Kamala, and then we'll probably talk about why we won't vote for either of them. But
right.
But we'll be right back here on WYSL. Talk to you in just a few minutes.
All right.
Yeah. So I want to get a few more of these comments.
Yeah. Hey.
And Denise Harris shouldn't win. Not a big fan. Matthew said this before, but it's not Trump I'm excited about. It's the team behind him. Elon, Tulsi, Vivek, RFK, and to a lesser extent, Jordan Peterson, all people I respect. What do you think about this, Tim?
Well, arguably that is, to me, an impressive team. I like Tulsi. Look, when Tulsi got savaged, when Tulsi, first of all, savaged Kamala Harris, all right, and then kind of made a case and went toe-to-toe with Hillary Clinton. I have conservative friends that were like, this is the kind of Democrat that I probably was when I was younger. This is something I could listen to. You know what I mean? Nobody was excited about Donald Trump until it was time to do Trump stuff, until it was time to vote. You know what I mean? And it was like, so I like Tulsi. Vivek is, first of all, a fantastic speaker. He's brilliant. He does definitely leans libertarian. He speaks to libertarian issues.
He knows how to craft his message to libertarians. I think
man, he's good.
Like
we got to go to war with cartels, and we're gonna go beat up.
Right? Yeah. No.
We're gonna fight for Taiwan for a short period of time until we give them back to China or something. It's very not clear what he meant there, and I did not like that at all. Like I was like, all right, well, thanks a lot.
Like, there's a bunch of like a bunch of nonsense Vivek says. I think I like him when he talks about like the idea of civic nationalism. I'm actually with him on that. Some of the other stuff. I'm not, Matthew. I'm not with you on the RFK thing, man. I don't like RFK. I think he's bonkers. And he's an authoritarian. Like honestly, like I don't think like the FDA is going to get more libertarian when he's involved because he's going to regulate the absolute shit out of everything.
Arguably. Here's where I find appeal, and this is where I want to counter and have a little conversation about him. Where I find appeal in him, you and I agree that if we have a government, one of the things that government should do is provide real information. All right, and so if the real information is, hey, high fructose corn syrup is an absolute disaster. Now, is the right answer to what? ban it, or is it to say we're going to stop subsidizing corn production because that's a real solution to this, right? And we're going to have to figure out how to get sugar from beets, and we may have to pay more money for this stuff. And that's just the reality. You know what I mean? But we'll
Maybe.
be
See, like
healthy.
what I'm worried is they're gonna go find studies that make their points just
That's
as we're doing
convenient.
now. It's just going to like I know that happens a bit now too, but
Oh, sure.
like it's just like, oh, we're just gonna do that, but like for his priorities, like, oh, I've always thought vaccines are bad. I found 3 studies that say that, so we're gonna ban these vaccines.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, we're gonna ban corn syrup, even though like corn syrup, it's a different type of sugar. It's like what it is now. And the whole reason we use corn syrup in the first place is like in part like subsidies, right? Like that's like there's a whole thing
Absolutely,
behind that,
dude.
subsidies and sugar tariffs. Like that's
Sure.
a
So
huge part of it.
if you don't hate it for the health consequences, Kevin, you can hate it because it's so popular because we subsidize it. Like,
Right. I mean, I'm frustrated with it for that reason, but I don't think like RFK going in and being like, I'm banning this because I feel it's bad for you. And if you question that, I'm going to force you to work on our organic farm. And that sounds like it's sort of a joke, but it's also sort of not a joke. He actually said like that's how we should rehabilitate people, is forcing people to work on farms.
well,
So,
if I needed rehabilitation and was in jail, I would love to work on a farm. I just want to be
you
clear
love
about that.
the collective farm ideas.
Yeah, no,
All
I
right. You're
love that.
gonna enjoy
Like
that, comrade.
when Trump decides to jail me for burning an American flag because I'm making a point that he can't take my First Amendment right away,
I want to
I
burn
would
this flag, but I just gotta prove a point.
I would
You can't
gladly
tell me
work.
not to.
Yeah, work on an organic farm for a year. That's the deal. That's what I'm willing to do.
Yeah. And Brennan Burns says, I think you forgot the most convincing libertarian argument for Trump. He threatened to go after the CIA and RFK. It just might make that happen.
Yeah, that is
Maybe.
appealing.
I mean, like I said, I will be pleasantly surprised if that's how it happens. What I think is going to happen is that he's going to fire some top level political leaders at the CIA and replace them with his own loyal people. And they're going to keep doing the same stuff, but Trump flavored. Like, I think that's going to be it. That's my expectation. If that's not what happens, then okay. But like they're gonna keep they're gonna also engage in skullduggery to whip out one of the phrases that Trump used recently. They're gonna do some shady stuff.
Right. No, that's for
just
sure.
with different political heads. That's my expectation for a Trump administration, with RFK involved, because they're not criticizing the power centers. They're not criticizing the institutions themselves. They're criticizing who is running them.
So that look again, we get to this point of like when we're exposing them for what they are. I have to go. All right, my libertarian creds absolutely agree with you. Like that, you're absolutely right because they are not really speaking to libertarianism. If they're going to free Ross, maybe if Trump wins, that's a thing. When we get back into the show, we'll maybe talk about the First Amendment, who we think's better on that. And then I've got a funny screen share for everybody.
Great.
But I want to do it during the show.
All right.
Because it'll make people laugh.
All right. Well, let's go back in a second and then we'll make our case for Kamala. And oh my God. All right. Let's go back in.
All right.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
Hey, once again, guys, I want to say thank you to the WYSL audience. I want to say thank you to all the people that are coming here and joining us from Twitter, from YouTube, from X and Facebook. We got Kevin and I went over some comments. You guys from WSL got to check out our podcast because we do go into deeper dives. We get to make some jokes there that we may not be able to make on the radio, but we love that you check out our show. We appreciate you and we appreciate everybody else. So thanks for being here, you crazy fools. Kevin and I are about to try to make the best case scenario for Kamala. I did kind of want to break it down according to all right, we talked about the Second Amendment. They're both kind of iffy there.
Yeah.
When we get into the First Amendment, I see an authoritarian, autocratic pile of nonsense that's coming out from the whole left side of the world right now, where speech is in trouble all over the place, and we have people like Tim Walz, and Kamala seems to be avoiding, confronting it directly, but that hate speech and that people should be jailed for speech or people should be punished for speech, and they constantly misinterpret the ruling of, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater thing. So
Tim Walz is a putz. I agree.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with I think Trump gets a nod there. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, we're just talking about how he wants to jail people for flag burning, though. So,
yeah, jackpot. He came right back with, well, they're bad on the First Amendment, but I'm gonna jail people for burning a flag. All right.
And he's had some insinuations too, where he's like the people helping the Democrats steal the election are gonna face serious jail time as well. And it sort of seems like a bit of a chilling effect. So that one's a bit more of a stretch, admittedly. But like I want to jail people for burning the flag. No, definitely not great on speech. No, I don't think either of them are good. Really, I'm not a fan of either one on speech.
No. I'm giving Trump a slight nod, only because he's funnier.
He's funnier.
Yeah,
at least he's funny, right? Like it's.
I mean,
do we want a clown who may or may not be a dictator, or an HR lady who, like, she's probably not going to be an open dictator, but is definitely going to add more rules?
Yeah, and continue growth in the autocratic state, empowering the state to engage in our everyday lives.
Might be something. Now, okay. Well, so I'll say this in defense of Kamala Harris, because to be honest, again, I'm not voting for Kamala Harris 100%. I'm voting for Chase Oliver. I've made my decision. This is what's happening. But I've actually found some of the cases for Kamala Harris more convincing than the Trump ones, and here's why. One is that she has actually talked about economic deregulation in a way that Trump hasn't, like specific economic deregulation in terms of like housing, right? So she's talked about, okay, like, here's how we can get the federal government to like make sure that like we're incentivizing more localities to allow for the building of houses, right? Mm-hmm. Now, again, it's paired with and then we're going to give everyone a $25,000 subsidy. I'm like, so close. Wish you just dropped that one.
That was going to be my counterpoint, Kevin.
Yeah, I wish you didn't do that.
You stole my counterpoint. You stole my counterpoint.
but on some of the other economic stuff, like Trump's tariff thing is like, it's bad. It's not good. Like Kamala's kind of walking away from the tariff thing, even though Joe Biden has like had plenty of tariff nonsense as well. But like they're like, I don't know, maybe I'll do 10% tariffs, maybe I'll do 20% tariffs, maybe 2,000% tariffs, whatever it takes. Like, no, that's bad. If he actually does that and he has the power to do that, it would be very bad. I don't want that to happen. I think that's going to hurt people.
I'll steel man the tariff argument in so much as there is an appeal to it. Like, we have lost manufacturing capacity in the United States. We have lost a certain rugged, we can do it ourselves here, and we have a big, huge economy. Now, I'm a free trader. I've talked about it on plenty of shows, so don't at me about that. Okay. It's not that I agree with it. I'm steel manning the argument saying,
right,
would we be compelled to produce more here? We're already the cleanest manufacturer in the world. It would be appealing to me for us to be a bigger manufacturer of many of the things that we use. Now,
so I mean,
would it be wildly expensive? Sure.
Yeah, there's been studies on this though. Like autarky is really hard to sustain. It's autarky is like where you produce everything domestically, and like a lot of manufacturing that takes place here, because we actually do a lot of manufacturing. It's just with fewer people.
Right.
It requires importation of foreign goods. Like, my dad used to work for like a company that builds a component for electronics that, would then get assembled. Like, they build the components and like get the metals and everything and then assemble that like later on. It's just part of the supply chain. But they would import some of those like raw materials from overseas. Would making that better help American manufacturing? No, it certainly wouldn't help that company in the supply chain. It wouldn't help the manufacturing producers in the U.S. or any of the U.S. companies that are selling parts overseas to another country, especially if there were like retaliatory tariffs, right? Like, which you would probably get.
What
like
Trump said
was
he would make exceptions.
He would make exceptions. Okay, so then we're just doing arbitrary rules. Now, again, like
which we have now, like whoever pays the most. Oh, I guess that's
we do have some of that now, but like at least like Harris is walking away from tariffs and talking about them as a tax on the American people. And like
That's
her
convenient.
team, unlike Joe Biden, haven't been like, well, if we just do selective tariffs, we can help certain industries grow. Like, well, there's not a great track record of that, actually. And hopefully she doesn't go down that road. But like Trump's going down that industrial policy road. He thinks that he has the hubris to think that he can control the economy. Like he does. He has the ego to do that. And like that sort of mindset is what I don't like in a politician.
Yeah.
And
I do.
you like the politicians who are like, I can fix this myself. If you just give me a little bit more power, I know enough to be able to manipulate the economy to make it grow. You like that mindset?
No, but okay. So I do feel like the counterpoints are important. All right. So where Trump is by far better, right, is that he is very pro energy development. Like he'll do the nuclear, he'll do the gas and oil,
Harris has talked about nuclear too. I mean, in more
fair
specific
enough
ways.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Trump.
Yeah, I think like that one. I'm actually very glad that there's starting to be a bipartisan consensus on the nuclear stuff.
Yeah,
and on things like NEPA reform too, which I think Harris has been like initially a little bit better about. But like Trump, he kind of talks about like regulatory reform in a vague way, but like her team came out and said, we need the National Environmental Protection Act, like permitting process to be changed because we can't build our energy grid without doing that. That's a great thing. It seems like it's actually building some steam in Congress, which is awesome. I love that. Like permitting reform is like pretty boring, but that's one of those like libertarian issues. Like, yeah, man, if it wasn't so expensive to build stuff, like we wouldn't have to spend as much government money, and corporations and individuals can just like go out and do things and make our country better. Instead, we're bogged down in paperwork.
Okay, so arguably there's something there that I'm glad that both candidates are talking about, and that regulatory capture is a real problem in the United States.
Yeah,
but I don't trust a party that is captured by the false arguments presented with climate change. They like,
come on.
Do not trust. Like,
what do you mean?
Climate change is real, the response is more power for everyone that is safer and able to get
the Harris campaign's on board with that. Like they've come around on that one. Like I'm pretty happy with this. Again, I'm not happy with like the campaign overall. Like there's a bunch of stupid ideas, but they've come around on that one. As has the Trump campaign.
Like I haven't.
They talk about like making it easier to build nuclear, right? Like they talk about like natural gas. She came around on natural gas, got a lot of flack from the left for that. But it's like, hey, natural gas is a good thing to do.
She got a lot of flack from
Pennsylvanians, like whatever.
On that one. Like she
changed her mind.
Any of that. Well,
she changed her mind. It's fine.
Well,
like I don't care. Like
Kevin.
I don't get mad when people change their mind. Like if they change their mind in the right direction, if they change their mind in the wrong direction, then I'm mad about it.
Right.
No, but like they've talked. That campaign has talked about this. And like I don't get mad about the climate change stuff. I think you and I have talked about that. It's like, if you're serious about like actually combating climate change, you do want to build up U.S. infrastructure because we produce things cleaner. I get that. And like, I think part of that too is like, if you're serious about climate change, we need to do nuclear power. And I'm glad like the Democrats have started to like come around on that side. Like the Democrats, the new liberals got to them and they said, you know what, you're right. We do need to bring nuclear power back. The Luddites and the degrowthers, like we're gonna ignore you folks. And I'm glad. That's good. Like the craziest people in the Democratic Party, some of them are starting to lose, and that makes me feel a little bit better. Now, that's all relative. Again, there's a lot of policies that are still remaining are very bad, but some of the craziest, like the degrowther stuff, has started to get pushed out of like mainstream Democratic politics, and that I appreciate.
Which is great that you can feel comfortable there. They brought it so strongly. They trade in it daily. So I don't know how I get to feel comfortable that they are actually arriving at a better place, because
I don't feel comfortable with the Republican Party. Like I can say the same thing about the Republicans. Like, they're the party of xenophobia, right? Like they're the party of nationalists and populists, and like that stuff all sucks. Like it's terrible. And like it's and I get it. I try not to let that color like my like understanding of reasonable Republicans who are like 70% there with me, like are trying to accomplish good things. And same with Democrats, right? Like I try not to let the worst people in the party define like people who are trying to like work together to get decent stuff done. I don't make that judgment about Republicans. I dislike them for a bunch of other policy reasons. I don't make that assumption about Democrats. I dislike them for plenty of policy reasons, but I'm not going to judge them by like their absolute craziest and worst elements.
Well, I am, because it's important.
You are selectively though. You're doing it to the Democrats, not to the Republicans.
How so? Like, make that case, because
No.
I've been after people like Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham for their bloodlust, warmongering nonsense forever. Okay, like they're gross, they're corrupted, and it's a perverse like system, right? So I don't like that about them.
Right.
So I have
Fair
criticism.
enough. So you're judging the whole Republican Party. All right, fair. I'll let that one go.
Right.
And we'll say Shane on Facebook says, first time listener here, enjoying agreeing with both of you on so many issues. Hey, thanks for listening, Shane.
Good. And Kevin and I normally agree pretty well, but we're not agreeing right now.
I know we're talking about this stuff. So, like, one other thing I want to talk about in terms of like the Harris campaign, not talking at all about Social Security. That's a shame. Trump campaign talking about Social Security in a way that's bonkers. He's like, we're gonna save it. We're gonna reduce taxes on it. We're no longer tax Social Security. It's gonna go bankrupt faster if he does that.
Yeah.
I'm and Tim, you're a collapsitarian, so you're like, yeah, okay, great, yeah, no.
Well,
that's
arguably, I'm not so much a collapsitarian as saying.
No,
hey,
I think you've like defended Social Security. Like we had a whole episode on this.
We did, and
where I was like, we need to abolish it, and you're like,
no, I defend it because I've paid into it my whole life, and that there is an absolute implied contract that everyone that has paid into it is owed something. They've been stolen from for decades. I've been stolen from for decades. If they had let me keep that money, I would have that. Even if they compelled me to save it, I would have that money. So it's absurd. Like the whole thing's going to collapse anyways. But what I'm in favor of, Kevin, is saying, hey, there's really hard choices here. Like we have to do something about Social Security. Maybe we can't fund another war overseas. Like maybe we can't do those things. Maybe we have to come in and let people trade in a free market situation in their own communities. Let them build things, let them do things, because that's going to make for a successful economy. Those are the things that I want to have happen. Like I want Social Security to be a lever for harder decisions to be made. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I'm more not let it collapse, but like we should just,
when I was your age, man, I was like, we should do away with it because I'm never going to see it.
We should probably just I said this on the local NPR affiliate. I said like I would be fine with a compromise position where all that money just gets transferred into a private 401k or IRA or whatever, and then that's it. Like let's just do that, and then the government can't touch it. It's my money. I own it.
I would agree with give me back all the money that I paid in and I'll forego the interest, and that will be fine. Okay.
Yeah.
And then stay out of my life and don't take another penny for it out of my taxes. Like I get it. Okay. But there are people that work their entire lives, Kevin, that I have budgeted off of that period. And
and Trump's plan makes that go bankrupt faster is the problem. Like, so like they've done some budget analysis that said like Donald Trump's going to add more to the debt. He's going to make programs like Social Security go bankrupt faster, even though he wants to like pretend like he's preserving them. He's not good on like the fiscal issues. Like he's not great on that stuff. Which
just
stinks.
Spend more money, bro.
Spends more money, and people are like, oh, like he only spent so much money the first time because of COVID. Nope, started way before that. Man, dude added more money to the national debt than any other president in history before the pandemic, and then Joe Biden was trying to beat him. Doing his best.
That's a good race. Like, look,
and actually, on that note, we're gonna have to continue this conversation during the break because we are out of time for this segment.
Oh man,
sorry, Tim. I know you, WYSL listeners. If you want to hear Tim's point, go find our podcast. Go find a free solution wherever you find podcasts. You can go find it. We're gonna be back in just a few minutes on a free solution. Talk to you soon. All right, Tim. What do you want to make your point now, or do you want to jump back into the radio show so the WYSL audience can hear it?
I can't even. Well, I think I
I
lost
cut you off. I
track.
was just like, I looked at the clock and I was like, oh man, we're 30 seconds over.
Yeah, no, that was a fun conversation. We should argue more often, really. But also we do get to where we get to this point of where we agree. So I think maybe we just cover wars next, and I think then the fact that everybody is saying Donald Trump is promising to get revenge on the government. I think that's great. I'm ready for that.
All right. Yeah, I mean we could talk about that. So of course, if anyone out in the comment section has other ideas, other things that we should mention as part of the show, leave those comments. We'd be happy to get to them. You know how it goes.
Mhm.
All right. So, all right, we'll go back in about like 5 seconds.
All right,
3,
perfect.
2, 1. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. And look, it's funny, but it's not funny. And guys, once again, thanks to the WSL audience. Thanks to all the people that are making comments out there. I think the last issue, Kevin and I got into a kind of a little disagreement where we diverged, where we're saying one of these people is slightly better than the other. And when we get to this next issue, this foreign entanglements issue, arguably, I think hands down, GDP growth is part of the Democratic strategy, which involves funding wars overseas and buying overpriced missiles. I think Russia's a low-cost producer of munitions, and I think that just based on that, they're going to eventually win this whole Ukrainian conflict if it stays non-nuclear.
Because Russia's going to win the conflict because they can produce munitions at a cheaper rate than the United States can.
Yeah. We're basically a cost-plus manufacturer. Like, we don't put it out to bid anymore. We just say, here, give us $100 billion. Every one of these Stingray missiles is $10,000. Like,
there are a lot fewer. The military industrial complex has shrank in terms of like the number of companies available.
Yeah, it's like down to 4 or 5 from 50 or 100. So it's all this kind of cost plus circular, hey, we're all in this together kind of style of autarky that I'm already uncomfortable with. Like, where we're supplying munitions, we're not getting bids on them. Russia's economy is now surpassed Japan for the 4th largest country in the world. They're figuring out what we figured out a long time ago, that spending money on war can pump up some numbers. I think they're phony. I think it's sad, and I think it's horrible, but I think it's real. Like, their economy's growing. We thought we would be able to crush them with economic sanctions. We're not. So they're winning the economic battle, and that's what war seems to be really about. You know?
Yeah. Yes. I tried to look up the Russian economy passing Japan. They're also claiming Germany, but like all the sources claiming that are Russian just sources. Germany. But
yeah, well, I trust.
So I don't know how I'm coloring me skeptical on that.
Sure, that's fine.
And here's the thing, let's assume this is true, right? Like that the GDP as typically measured is greater than Germany, Russia, because of the production of war goods. One of the things, like the actual thing that convinced me to look into libertarianism was Ron Paul saying it does not grow the economy to produce a good, ship it overseas, and blow it up.
I agree.
That is a net loss. And that's like the one thing that like clicked for me when I was like very much like a dyed-in-the-wool, like typical Republican conservative of like 2009 vintage.
Yeah.
To consider the stuff that Ron Paul was saying seriously. And so I would say the same thing about, about Russia is that like, yeah, they're probably not doing so well because it does not benefit your economy to produce something, move it to another country, and have it blow up. Nor does it benefit your economy to, even if you are spending a bunch of government money to pay people to send them overseas and have them die and not come back and work. And
Okay,
that's
so
what's happening to tens and possibly hundreds of thousands of Russian men.
correct. So let me paint a different picture on that, and how we sustain it is through debt transactions, right? That are never going to get paid back, that we service now with $1 trillion a year in interest. Okay.
Well,
So that's how they keep it going. That's how they say GDP has grown, because we're taking money and kicking the can down the road and blowing it up right now. Do you see what I mean? Like
Sure.
it's obviously a shell game. It's obviously
and I'm with you on this. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I guess like bringing it back to like U.S. politics, I don't necessarily see there being a huge difference between what Harris is going to do and what Trump's going to do, right? Like we talked about it a little bit. I think like the best case for Trump is the foreign policy stuff, but I think that
Sure.
that a lot of this is still going to go on. I think my position on the two candidates has been and continues to be they're bad in different ways. I'm not going to pick one or the other. Like I will entertain arguments for both, but
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, they're just bad in different ways. Donald Trump is bad in a like an obvious way. Like I don't like his tax policy. I don't like his his authoritarian tendencies. I don't like what he did with January 6th. I know you and I disagree on that. With Harris, like I don't like, how much bureaucracy she's probably going to bring. Her casual stuff about price controls, her casual stuff about subsidizing housing, which is going to subsidize demand some more. I don't like her gun control stuff. They're bad in different ways. That's why I'm voting for Chase Oliver. Like, because
Hold on, before give me one last chance to convince you to vote for Donald Trump. All right.
Okay.
According to ABC News, Donald Trump has made the unprecedented campaign pitch, elect me to get revenge on the government. I honestly, right there, if that can't convince you to vote for the guy, are you even a real libertarian?
Compelling case. However, back in the day, before Jeffrey Tucker got kind of weird again, he wrote this great article about the case against anti-disestablishmentarianism, right? So basically, he made the case like just being against the government is not good enough.
Yes, it is. He's wrong about that. I have proof.
He was right about that, because if you are against the government, but the sense is you're against the current people in government and you're going to take them out and replace them with your own people, that is not like an advancement for liberty.
No, I'd replace them with nothing. Like,
Trump is not going to replace them with nothing. That's my point. His revenge on the government is I'm going to kick out a bunch of career bureaucrats and replace them with my new career bureaucrats.
All right, so the would be epic, the screaming and the crying. But yeah, no, your point's valid.
That's not
well taken.
I think
it's well taken.
I think that what you said there, the will be epic, is the reason why a bunch of people are voting for Trump. And that to me is also not a very good reason. It's not a good reason to vote for someone who may make liberty go away, who may make our lives worse, just because it makes the right people mad. Like the Democrats do this too. I talked about this on Twitter when I saw the sign in my neighborhood that's like, I'll tread wherever I want, sweetie. And it's a cat like picking up a snake, right? Those are the same people who are like, you know what? I'm going to vote for Harris because it's going to make the MAGA people mad.
Yeah.
Man, those people suck too. Like they're not, man, I've used that a lot for the radio. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bobs. But
sorry, Bobs. I think they understand.
Yeah. But like, I don't like either of those people who are like, you know what? I'm going to vote for my candidate because I think that they're the most likely to get revenge on the people I don't like. That's not a good way to do politics. That's a dark place to be. And I think those voices are louder on the Trump side, but there's definitely a lot of them on the Kamala side.
Arguably, I would say that the voices are louder on the Kamala side, but I think your point is incredibly valid. And arguably, every single time I'm presented with this decision, and as emotional as I want to get, I have to fall back on the notion that what I want to vote for, what I give my consent to, is a concept of principles, an embodiment of principles. I just want a human being that embodies real libertarian principles, that the government is not the answer to all of our problems, that the broken window fallacy allows us to commit heinous atrocities overseas with no real mission, with no real goal, and all to support the dollar when we could answer these problems with free trade, and compassion. Like, get governments out of this business of sending young men to die. Okay, like,
Yeah.
get them out of it. So yes, there's a certain amount of Trumpism that I enjoy, and certainly he paints a picture that I will admit to filling in the blanks on, Kevin. Like, he's close to what I want to hear, so I fill in the blanks, and I think a lot of Trump fans do
A
that.
lot of people do that. It's tempting.
Yeah, and the same with Kamala. She maybe has some good policies, but bro, she's a vapid, horrible speaker who,
Well,
like,
but like that's
it's
that
awful.
she's doing the same thing, right? You're right. Like, she doesn't say much about specific policies, so people project the specific policies they want onto her.
Sure, and
Right.
I'm projecting negative ones because
Yeah.
I have evidence of what they want and what they've done. Okay, but also that may not be fair. So the answer long term, the right answer is to, like, all right, I'm falling back on principles and probably going to write in Chase Oliver. Like,
Yeah, Chase Oliver and Mike
how
Trematt. Mike Trematt, by the way, you can go back. We interviewed him on the show.
we did.
Um,
We knew he was going to be a big star. We knew it.
That's right. We knew it. He got he could have been the nominee. He got close. I liked him, but no, I mean they're kind of the only ones who, like, that foreign policy stuff you talked about. They're the ones who are taking that seriously. Like the national debt stuff that I also care about. They're the ones taking that seriously. The Social Security stuff that both of us, like, care about in different ways.
Yeah,
they're the ones taking that seriously.
Sure. The corn syrup thing. They're the ones that are talking about ending subsidies. Yeah. Like, they're the ones.
True.
No one else, not one person, Kevin, understands how big of a deal it is. The way that you and I and other libertarians who are dedicated to principles understand it, right? That this is, whether personal responsibility would solve the problem, sure, but also corn syrup is unhealthy. It's way less healthy for you than regular sugar. And so the fix is the government created this mess. Their answer right now is no answer. The only real answer is, like, well, let's end the subsidies and see what happens. At least let's do that.
Yeah,
you know,
see that, like, maybe suddenly when people are paying the real price for this product, companies won't want to use it as much anymore because it won't make as much economic sense. And, the consumer might say, I'm going to switch to these other alternatives because it's no longer, like, cheap and subsidized anymore.
Correct.
That could happen. Now, are the farmers going to be mad about it? Yeah, some of them are, because they love the sweet corn subsidies, but
look, some of their business model, Kevin, is credit farming. Okay, like that. There's
like to romanticize farmers, but, like, some of them, they're big corporations. I'm not saying this universally, but some big corporations who are credit farming too. Like,
this is not your organic power. Right. This is not your organic farmer down the road. This is not the guy with 300 cows sending milk to a dairy. Okay, this is 7,000 acres that's being farmed with a robotic tractor already. You know what I mean? Like, this is big ag. This isn't your local dude making milk. This is something else that most people don't really see it. Like, they don't drive through the cornfields in Iowa. You get a sense of it. Okay. But, like, it's not upstate New York dairy farm guy. It's big, huge credit farming business. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
No, I don't like it either. But man, presidential politics sure does cater to that with the Iowa primaries. But
yeah,
how it goes. That's how we have our system set up. All right, so we got, like, a couple minutes left. Any other bold predictions and/or stuff you want to mention about local elections?
I honestly have nothing other than Proposition 1, and our friend Rich Pertel has persuaded me that it is. He spent some time explaining it to me. It's a kind of a drastic change to the New York State Constitution without a real debate about the New York State Constitution, and so based on that, I'm voting no on Proposition 1.
Yeah, I'm less convinced about, like, the trans panic stuff on Prop 1 and more convinced by this just is going to create a lot of lawsuits while being contradictory of itself.
Right.
On Prop 1. So, like, the stuff that, like, the Empire Center wrote about, I'm kind of I think I'm like leaning no. I don't think it's funny because I've heard like the pro side talk about it, and they're like, well, it doesn't actually change New York State law. It just codifies it. And like okay, so like what do we need it for then? Well, like it's important to say that like our values are reflected in the Constitution. I'm like, okay, so we're creating something that's probably going to create a bunch of lawsuits for the sake of virtue signaling while
Sounds
creating
like
an
it.
exemption for itself. Yeah, that seems like a bad idea. That's not a good way to do that. Like again, I'm not really convinced by like some of the like, oh, it's gonna allow all the kids to be trans without parents, but like maybe, but like it's probably not going to be a big change from now. But like it's going to create lawsuits. These rights are in conflict, and we create exemptions where the state can engage in explicit like racism and discrimination based on sex if it feels like it needs to correct a wrong. Like that's not. I don't like that.
No,
I
it
don't
doesn't
think we should
sound
do
good.
that.
That does not sound good at all. That we do not need more laws that fund trial lawyers like
No, yeah,
ability to make work for themselves. Okay, we just don't. We have an entire immigration system. We have the ADA. Those guys are plenty busy already. So let's not give them another law. I'm all right with that. I think that's fair.
yeah, that's a good enough reason not to vote for it for me. That's kind of where I'm at. Now. I think it's probably going to pass because there's a bunch of
Yeah.
people who are convinced it seems good. Like, oh, this is the prop to protect abortion. This is the prop to protect women's rights, and that's it. That's the sales point, and it's gonna go that direction. All right.
Yeah.
So WYSL audience, we are out of time for this show. I think we'll probably keep going for a few minutes longer.
Yeah.
So if you want to find us, go find us on a free solution for whatever podcast service you listen to. Spotify, like I think I use like Caster, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, you can find a free solution. Go look for it and check us out. All right. On that note, have a great night, WISL audience. Take care. And happy Halloween. Keep playing the music so I can have strategic coughing breaks.
You were kind of, that was rough.
Yeah. I think children get me sick. Sorry,
these little disease vectors, Kevin.
They really are. Like no courtesy, just coughs right in my face.
And when they're feeling sick, that's when they want to cuddle, and you just want them to feel better. So you cuddle with them a little bit more, and it's like
that's all he wants.
It's rough.
Poor little kid, my almost 8-month-old. Like that's all he wants. He's wanted to be held like all night because he feels bad.
Yeah,
I get. And sure enough, he's just coughing in my face all night. So
nice. That must have been fun for you. Like I had something else, kind of. Yeah,
is Tim Smoke coming through?
That would be
Kevin's mic.
Man, this AI is wild.
Yeah, just piping right in. That's what's getting me.
I got another screenshot I want to do. This is pretty funny.
All right, what else you got?
All right, hold on. I think this one will make you laugh. It made me laugh.
Yeah, we forgot to talk about the garbage truck thing.
Oh, yeah,
that's what you're pulling up.
No, this one.
Joe Rogan says Kamala Harris interview isn't off the table, even though she rejected her conditions.
Oh, that's not the one. Where did it go? Okay. Hang on. This is pretty funny. I'll find it.
No, like the garbage truck thing, though, is another one of those cases where Donald Trump can be funny. I get the whole premise is like, oh, Joe Biden implied that his fans are garbage, so he's going to take offense to it and drive around the garbage truck. He's got good comedic timing. He knows how to do
really
stuff.
like that. That is very appealing to me. Like that Trump trolls the trolls,
Yeah.
And I do enjoy that. All right. So, anyways, there was an article by some left-leaning person who was like, Joe Rogan cancels all of his appointments for the worst. No, wait. Donald Trump cancels all of his interviews for the worst person in the world. And it was like about Joe Rogan. And I was just like, I wanted to present it. I thought that one that I just put up there was, yeah, like Joe Rogan is the worst person person in the world. And it's like, he's really
Yeah.
just not.
No, he's not. He's people need to get a grip.
Yeah.
You know, like people want me to feel like passionately one way about or another about Joe Rogan. I don't. I think he's all right. You know?
I think he's great, man. Like,
Yeah.
and look, I'm not going to convince you to be passionate about him. Some of his shows are
it's fine.
great.
If you're into him, you're into him, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I've seen some clips and they're great, and I think he's interesting. He could be funny, you know. Like, it's not like super my thing, but like, I'm not like on the. I don't think he's like the best journalist in the world, but also he's not trying to be. He's just trying to have conversations with people. Nor is he the worst guy in the world because he doesn't always like press people hard. It's because he's not trying to be the best journalist. Like, that's not who he is. And so people want to like project that, like they expect like these journalism things out of him, and that's not what he's trying to do.
Oh yeah, no. My favorite shows from him, I don't even listen to his hookups with his fellow comedians, right? And a lot of times when he's doing politics, I don't listen to those either. But like when he has a breakdown of like Graham Hancock's theory of Atlantis that is now under the ocean, and how like that's where he shines, or where he's talking about how, you know, religion probably developed from the use of psychedelic mushrooms that they put into wine casks.
That's interesting. I listened to like an hour interview about like chronic wasting disease that he did, and I was like, because he's just like, this thing freaks me out. I'm gonna bring on an expert to talk about it. I'm like, okay, because chronic wasting disease is crazy. It's a weird thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know what you're talking about. So
chronic wasting, it's a thing that affects deer.
Okay, so that part I knew. Okay, all right. So we're back on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically like it gives them like all the weird like skin stuff. The thing that's weird about it is it's caused by a folded protein. So you can't sanitize it. Like it's not something you can just like clean. So if you have and people can catch it, it'll melt your brain. It'll make you go insane and you'll eventually die. There's nothing you can do to cure it. And if you get an MRI with it, they basically have to throw the whole machine out because it is not possible to clean it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
It's folded protein. My friend who was like training to be a doctor was the one who told me about it. He's like, no, it's crazy. Like
that is crazy. I wish I knew more about it. I mean, arguably, I knew that deer would get it, and I know that you're not supposed to eat them after.
Yeah, well, that's why they're worried that it'll like transfer the people, and it sort of can,
right?
But yeah,
there hasn't been a lot of cases of that, has there?
No, but it's one of those things. It's just like you eat enough bats, and eventually, you know, you get COVID. Like that's how it works, right?
Right.
No, but like I'm joking, but like that is sort of how like disease does spread sometimes.
Well, yeah. Sure. I mean, guys, if you cook your food, though, most diseases can't really survive that. We got time do we have time to either talk about Nate Silver or 5 unusual indicators that could predict the presidential election?
All right, let's do both quick.
All right. All right. So the first one, the 5 unusual indicators that could predict a presidential election win. I kind of thought maybe we'd get to it during the show, but we, in fact, did not, because we had that spicy second half of that debate segment. Anyways, so one of the things that has a tendency to predict, and it's a pretty serious predictive. Look, guys, sometimes I don't give credit where credit is due. This is an article from Newsweek by Marnie Rose McFall, and she did gather up 5 interesting things that have done a really nice job of predicting presidential elections. All right. So the first one
I like Matthew's comment on this. You should do that question and ask for wrong answers only. All right. So that question to the rest of the audience too. What are the 5 predictors of the election? Wrong answers only.
All right, that would be good. Yeah, come up with something. So in this article, the first one is the S&P 500 index. And so the stock market being up or down in the 3 months before election day has correctly predicted the outcome in 21 out of the 24 last elections. So notably, what it means is when the S&P 500 is up between August and November, and right now it's up about 12%. That's a big that's a big advantage for Harris right now,
Right.
arguably. But she's not really the
Who's
incumbent. So.
sort of the incumbent. She's the incumbent like Al Gore was the incumbent.
Arguably, though, couldn't you kind of make the case that Trump is also kind of the incumbent? Like he's a former president.
He won in 2020. No.
Yeah, he arguably won in 2020 and was robbed of his ability to serve by the deep state and the CIA.
What percentage of McDonald's shake machines working?
That's a good one. All right. So look, this
I
one.
think I did see a tweet from Trump about that. Said he's going to fix the shake machines.
Yeah, he went right for it, man. Because people were joking about it, and he decided that is such a good joke. I'm going to make it my own. Yeah. All right. So candidate height, Kevin, is a pretty reliable predictor. Other than
people like the tall candidate.
People like the tall candidate. Yeah. So obviously, guys, Trump's like 6'3", Kamala's like 5'4". This is a big advantage to Trump, though it has, like, I mean, if you believe that Joe Biden won in 2020, he was 3 inches shorter than Donald Trump, and George Bush was shorter than both Al Gore and John Kerry. So
yeah.
Perhaps now that is a counter indicator, but Obama was pretty tall.
Yeah.
And Trump was way taller than Hillary. So, I mean, right there, evidence.
Where we only have like a few dozen data points.
Yeah, the Redskin rule. Okay, so I don't know if you guys realize that there used to be a football team named the Washington Redskins. They're now named the Washington Commanders.
Tell us more history, Grandpa.
I know, right? So on Sunday, October 27th, the Washington Commanders defeated the Chicago Bears in a dramatic 18-15 finish.
Did you see that Hail Mary?
The game concluded with a Hail Mary pass from the Commanders' rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, to Noah Brown as time expired, clinching a victory in the thrilling final play. So this does actually indicate that the incumbent could possibly win.
That's it's one of the indicators that the Washington home team wins.
Yep. If they lose, if they lose,
you have to see if does it apply because they're not the Redskins anymore. Does the Commanders still work? Right? You know, it's
I don't actually. I don't know.
Because were they at? I can't remember. Were they the Washington football team yet in 2020? I forget where.
I think that's where they were at in 2020. Was the football team, the Washington football team.
The Washington football team.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and though for real though, if you're even if you're not a football fan, go check out that Hail Mary. It's crazy. Like it's a.
I'm gonna have to check it out because I haven't seen it.
So it's funny. So first of all, you know how Hail Mary works. Like everyone kind of runs down the field. There'll be like a handful of defenders who are trying to still like sack the quarterback, and the quarterback at this point is just kind of running around trying not to get sacked, right?
Right.
And he throws it like it must have been like a 60 some odd yard pass. Like it was ridiculous all the way down into the end zone. Meanwhile, there's a Bears defender down there who's taunting the crowd. He's like yelling at the crowd, like waving around. And like he's the guy who's not paying attention, and then he runs in to try to like stop the pass after it gets thrown because this is a very long play. It's a good like 15 seconds, which is very long for this type of thing. And he ends up batting it up, and it lands right into the hands of one of the Washington receivers.
I did see it. Yes. Oh my God, that poor guy. I felt bad.
So, no, I mean the NFL script writers were on point this week. They did a great job.
All right. So here's the number one. This is number 4, but this is the best predictor of all. Buskin Bakery in Ohio has predicted almost every presidential election correctly since 1984 through cookie sales. So they kind of just make a Trump cookie and a Kamala Harris cookie. And guys, it's been right every single time since 1984, and Donald Trump is literally up like 3-1. He's just killing her. They've sold
Maybe.
30,000 Donald Trump cookies and 12,000 Kamala Harris cookies. Whew.
Wow. Maybe the cookies predict it. Now, I see these things like, and these indicators are fun and all. But I
Sure.
saw one today. It's like historian correctly predicts 9 out of the 10 last elections. And I'm like,
Yeah,
bro,
well,
that's actually it's a 50-50 shot. It's not that impressive. If I
Right.
predict correctly 10 coin flips in a row, I don't deserve an article about how I'm a wizard, right? Like it's not necessarily that impressive.
all right, but if you do it 10 different times, you predict 10 coin flips in a row, then it's different. But yeah, I get what you're
I do
saying.
attend. Yeah, but it's not that impressive to me. It's 50-50. Some of them are more obvious than others. Yeah, I'm not that impressed by some of that stuff. There you go. Good pun. That's how the cookie crumbles.
It is. So anyways, Joe Biden called Trump supporters garbage. Donald Trump said America's a garbage can. So we've got a lot of garbage being tossed around right now.
Puerto Rico.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, I can't do it. I kind of had a joke, guys. You'll play along with me for a second. Like, I know there was this big offensive joke at the RNC Nazi convention in Madison Square Garden, which coincidentally, Jimmy Carter, also a Nazi, had a big, huge convention back in the
No,
80s.
wasn't the same as the 1930s one or the Trump one. Those are
Well,
basically the same
whatever.
thing.
Yeah, whatever. That was so. There was a lit that to me that was wildly absurd, and we should have probably just made fun of it during the show because this kind of stuff is absurd, right? Like, am I wrong? Like, okay, the Hinchcliffe joke, I can get people being like a little bit offended about, but did you see him roast Tom Brady? Like, oh my god,
Yeah, no, it's
Like,
brutal.
dude. And honestly, I had a clip of Jon Stewart I was going to load up. Once again, Jon Stewart, the hero of free speech, comes down on the side of supporting Donald Trump. No, he came down on the side of like, guys, he's a roast comedian. Like, that's a
That's what he
roast
does.
joke. It
Now-
was epic. He's like, I love that joke.
Right. Yeah. Like he did what he does. He makes like edgy roast jokes. Like some people aren't into that. Now, was it a good idea to put him up at your rally? Maybe not. He's gonna go up and he's gonna roast people. And in this case, he's roasting like Americans.
Yeah, I was going to try to work a joke in about, and guys, bear with me. Maybe if I work it out with you,
Gonna workshop it
come.
live. All right. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
we're going to
exciting.
do it live. Yeah, arguably, there is an island of floating garbage in the Pacific Ocean. And I was going to kind of try to create a piece that said the inhabitants of the floating island of garbage are very upset with Tony Hinchcliffe.
Okay.
Because he smeared them with Puerto Rico.
Compared to Puerto Rico.
I don't know. That doesn't quite work.
Yeah, you gotta work on your timing.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're too timid about it. Like,
well,
Tony
I
Hinchcliffe
feel
was
guilty
hesitant
about
with
it,
that.
right? Like I couldn't deliver that one with oomph because, guys, honestly, I don't. To be perfectly honest, like I could almost chuckle when a comedian makes a racist joke, but for the most part, I try not to. I don't get them. Like I think
it's not
they're
really my
kind of
thing, I guess.
based in something that doesn't appeal to me. Like some sort of like occasional joke. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't get into them.
Yeah,
And there's so
that's-
much funny shit out there in the world that I don't need racist jokes to make me
Yeah,
laugh.
I think there's ways to be fun without that. I don't really find racist jokes funny either. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
If it's your thing and everyone's in on it, like, okay, have fun. I don't think that should be illegal, but
Right. All right. So I like when Irish guys make fun of Irish people being drunk. Like maybe black guys smoking weed or getting busted all the time. Like I like jokes like that, self-deprecating kind of.
self-deprecating stuff that can be funny. Yeah, no, I get it. Like if everyone's in on it and it's a good time, then yeah, sure,
Yeah.
man, have fun. It's less fun when people aren't in on it than
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, like that's why like roast comedy can be fun. I get
Sure.
like the Tom Brady roast, like there were a bunch of funny parts, but everyone's in on it. They're having a good time. They know they're getting roasted. Like that's what it is.
Yeah. Like I don't know. He made a joke about one of the Kardashian girls, and I was just like, all right, I don't know why people laugh at stuff like that. Cause like I'm not a prude, bro. I'm not, but like, I don't know. That was gross. It was fucking gross.
They had I mean, and also like the Puerto Rican joke wasn't even like the most crass joke at the there was a more sexually oriented joke at the Trump rally from the same comedian talking about yeah, we're just I won't even get into it, but you can look it up. Like I was like, how, do I want to put this out on the podcast or want to repeat it? No, it's just a sexual joke aimed at Latinos.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to. I doubt I'd laugh. Maybe.
Yeah, you might laugh, but
all right. So
anyway.
wait. So Shelly, what did your friend say? Did she lose her mind, or did she think it was funny? I'm wondering.
But
yeah. So, anyways, it's an exciting election season. I don't want it to be over, but I have a feeling it's not going to be over. Like
it's gonna keep going. Some encore episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna be like, there's gonna be lawsuits. There's probably gonna be riots. I don't know. Arguably, so as a predictor, the prediction markets do look to favor Trump right now. Like money generally knows something. So all of those betting markets heavily favor Trump right now. The polls are showing a statistical dead heat, which arguably in my mind favors Trump a little bit based on history. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting couple of days.
Oh, so we didn't talk about Nate Silver, but Nate Silver talks about this stuff where it's like the national polls, like they can sort of be an indicator of where the overall election is going to go, but like we don't vote that way. We vote by state, right? So the important part is what's happening in particular swing states, what's happening in Pennsylvania, what's happening in Wisconsin, what's happening in North Carolina, that type of stuff. So those are things we have to watch. I don't know. I haven't been paying that much attention to it because like I'm more concerned about which one of their policies are going to come crashing down on us.
All of them.
Yeah. All of them.
Nate Silver doesn't. I read an article by him earlier today, and here it is. Okay, he's saying that it does look like, according to him, and he does seem to be pretty good at breaking out key points, breaking out key factors to consider, like what you were just saying about states and stuff like that. So he does say that his analysis lends a slight edge to Donald Trump, but he's not like, the betting markets seem to be over invested right now, is what he's saying. And he's like a professional gambler on top of that.
Right. He knows his gambling. So
yeah.
I mean, I kind of thought that too. But Tim, we even talked about that. Are there any local candidates you're excited to vote for in this election?
No, not really. Only because, first of all, I've been relatively busy. Second of all, I do think that as I progress, I will probably get a little bit more involved in local politics. But I did spend some time looking at it, and arguably, like, I'm a rabble rouser. And what I see when I look at my local town board is a bunch of people that are working for practically nothing, managing budgets, doing the goddamn best job they can to deal with what the government tells them to do. There's not a ton from my local group. There's not a ton of virtue signaling. They're just managing budgets and looking to replace old buildings. And after Brian's show, another guy reached out to me and he said, my town is nothing like Brian's. I feel bad. Guys, I don't know if you guys got a chance to check out my show with Brian, but he literally is like, hey, they're trying to get more money from FEMA, and they're like, looks like trying to commit fraud, and I'm not going to let that happen. Like,
Yeah.
So those things are real. Those things happen locally, but my crew is like, they didn't even rehire a dog catcher. You know what I mean? They're just like, wow, we don't really have the money for it. And the last one didn't make us any money. So do we really need a dog catcher? You know what I mean? They're those kind of people. They're just taking care of budgets and for basically nothing, as far as I can tell. You know what I mean?
There are a lot of local government folks who like, that's what it is. It's like, okay, how do we get enough money to make sure that the roads get plowed? Right. Like that's like, and a bunch of people doing that, like not totally thankless work, but fairly thankless work of making sure like the stuff that happens locally, like keeps rolling, like the from snowplows to playgrounds to like whatever. Right. Like,
right. They tried to get excited. Yeah. They tried to get excited about Airbnbs, and everybody, all the constituents are telling like, look, we spend that money here. Okay. And we fix up those houses, and like, could you just not make it that hard? And they were like, all right, we won't make it that hard. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay, we won't.
It's nice. I generally think that way about like a lot of politicians. Now, there are a lot of stinkers out there. I get it. But I think most people are just like, they're trying to grind it out.
Right.
And then
that's who these people are. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. They're just, all right, I get a couple grand, maybe a little bit of contribution towards health insurance, and I spend, up to 20 hours a week trying to help this show. And I show up once a week, and we have meetings, and,
Right. They do that, and it's like, okay, you're going to take home like 10 grand worth of pay for like that 20-hour a week job,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm only sort of exaggerating. Some towns are like very low, but like
sure,
most don't. It's not like a full-time like real job, like in terms of pay.
Right. No, like I'm saying, like maybe they get 3 grand, maybe they get 10 grand. It doesn't really matter. They commit to going every Wednesday night, and then whatever extra stuff that they have to have budget meetings about. And I see no reason to rabble rouse with those people, Now, where Brian is, they have a growing budget. It's heavily impacted by positive inputs from tourism, and there's a very liberal bent to everything they're trying to do, from like, hey, let's make laws about finding people if they don't mow their lawn, to if they have a junk car in their yard, let's hand them a ticket. And then
would you call that liberal?
Oh no, I'm sorry, authoritarian. Yeah, that's what I would call it. All right,
so I would do that, because I don't see that like even on like a left right thing. That's like kind of a busybody thing. Like it's just...
That's correct. No, I misspoke. Arguably, where I was going to go to the next piece was like, all right, let's rent a green waste container so everybody can bring their leaves and stuff down, and that felt very kind of phony climate virtue signaling kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so.
There's some, rowdy debates about whether or not the town should be doing garbage in some places. Like when we're vetting candidates as like the Libertarian Party, like that was a thing that came up in the town of Pittsford. Like, do we want municipal garbage? And like, gosh, people had opinions on
it. And guys, that's the other thing about going to a local town board meeting, is that if there's an important issue that perhaps as someone that, well, listening to everybody's opinion is important at those meetings. And what can happen to you is that your brain will literally short circuit while you're listening to them, and you will want to like stick a fork in your eye or something so you can stay awake. But
that's the real talent it takes to be on a town board.
A lot of people got a lot of things to say, and like
the
somehow
to listen to your constituents. That's democracy in action.
Somehow their cat is going to be materially affected by this new law, and they want you to know that. And so that is something that the freedom variant does not have the freedom to accept. He's just like, wow, nope, can't do it.
Because that's what most of the time you got to sit there. You got to be stoic. You can't argue with people. Like that's how like Rochester City Council, most of the time it's not a discussion. It's you are going to listen to people, and you have to sign up, and everyone gets their shot. You get your like 60 seconds. I've spoken a couple times.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I went and there was like 3 of us there, and I didn't sign up to speak, but they were like, "Hey, do you got anything to say?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, like you guys are overdoing it about the Airbnb stuff, but I get it." And they're like, "All right, well, we'll take a look at that. We've heard from other people too," because they were
Yeah.
like thinking about an Airbnb ban, and I'm like, it, "We have houses falling in the ground, guys. Like, let's not do that, you know." And they were
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, we'll think about it," and that was it. And then like,
Yeah.
"Hey, do you want to like what was it? Some I don't know, some service they needed. We'll pay you 12.50 an hour. Do you want to do that?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm so busy. Like, I just happened to had dropped my kid off at practice, and I had enough time to stop in before I had to go pick him up from practice. So I just, saw cars, went in. That's it. Just happened to check it out."
There you go. All right. Well, on that note, I think
Yeah.
we're gonna call it a night.
All right.
Thanks for listening, folks. Appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate y'all listening to the show. Have a good night.